All right. Hello. Good evening. My name is Heike Dempster. I'm the Director of Engagement and Outreach at YoungArts. My pronouns are she, her. The YoungArts campus is situated on the traditional homeland of Native nations, including the Tequesta, the Calusa, the Taino, and today the Miccosukee and the Seminole. We pay our respects to the elders, past, present, and future, and recognize their continued existence and contributions to our community. Thanks, y'all, for joining us this evening. This is an info session dedicated to the jazz discipline at YoungArts. YoungArts identifies exceptional young artists, amplifies their potential, and invests in their lifelong creative freedom. And the journey starts with the competition for artists aged 15 to 18 or in grades 10 to 12. I have a few housekeeping notes quickly. So if you have questions throughout this session, please either raise your hand and ask it or use the chat feature. We will be also adding some additional information materials throughout, so keep an eye on the chat. If you want to protect your privacy, because this session is being recorded and shared after, you can change your name to first name only if you'd like on your display. And now it's my pleasure to welcome our speakers today. I have my colleague Anitra Ward, Associate Director of Winner Programs at YoungArts, Jazz National Selection Panelist, and 1983 YoungArts winner in Jazz Javon Jackson, and 2023 YoungArts winner in Jazz Skylar Tang. Let me say a little bit more about our speakers. Javon Jackson is a tenor saxophonist and came into international prominence touring and recording with the legendary drummer Art Blakey as a member of his band. And he went to release, sorry, now I lost track of where I was, apologies. Symbolizing a new generation of musicians that blended tradition with new jazz, Jackson went on to release 16 recordings as a band leader and toured and record over 135 CDs with jazz greats, including Irvin Jones, Freddie Hubbard, Joss Hayden, Betty Carter, Cedar Walton, Ron Carter, and many others. In 1992, Jackson made his recording debut with Me and Mr. Jones, featuring James Williams, Christian McBride, and master drummer and NEA jazz master Elvin Jones. Jackson also recorded 6 projects for Blue Note Records, featuring collaborations with Betty Carter, Diane Reeves, Cassandra Wilson, Kenny Garrett, Jackie Tierson, John Medeski, and Vernon Reed. In 2012, Jackson released 2 self-produced recordings, Lucky 13 and Javon Jackson and We 4, celebrating John Coltrane. For Lucky 13, Jackson covers music by Stevie Wonder as well as newly composed original material. In 2010, Jackson was commissioned by the Syracuse International Film Festival to compose a full-length score for the Alfred Hitchcock film The Lodger, a silent movie based on the hunt for Jack the Ripper. The original score had its debut at the festival, performed live by Javon Jackson at the film screening. On February 18, 2022, Javon released his 22nd recording as the leader, The Gospel According to Nikki Giovanni, his 5th album for his Solid Jackson Records label. In 2013, Jackson accepted the position of director of the Jackie McLean Institute at the University of Hartford. Jackson has a bachelor's in music from the Berklee College of Music and a master of music from the State University of New York College at Purchase. Then we have Skylar Tang, a 17-year-old musician and composer. She was born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area, where she attends Crystal Springs Upland School. She has emerged as one of the nation's top high school jazz musicians, performing at the Monterey Jazz Festival's Next Generation program, the Vail Jazz Workshop, NYO Jazz, and becoming a Young Arts winner with distinction. She's also an award-winning and published composer, having been selected for Jazz Education Network's Young Composer Showcase and having won the Jazz at Lincoln Center Essentially Ellington Big Band Composing and Arranging Contest with her piece Kaleidoscope. Skylar is a prominent artist in the Bay Area music scene, whose versatility lands her in big bands and quartets, playing styles ranging from bebop to neo soul. In her free time, Skylar enjoys sewing and playing pickleball. So now I pass it off to Javon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Heike. I am Javon Jackson. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And I was a Young Arts winner a few moons ago. And I'm a Jazz National Selection Panelist for Young Arts. And with that role, I do some of the last selection for the ensemble, and then we help work with the ensemble once they're selected, the finalists that come down to Miami. It's a great opportunity to spend the week, and then we provide other situations for the finalists to do performances and also meet with some select jazz artists that we try to come down. We have come down in the past that work with the students. I'm sorry. And so in the past, it's been artists like Jimmy Heath, God rest his soul. He was a mentor to me. Ron Carter's been involved. Joan Brackeen, Donald Harrison. See, I'm trying to think who's so many folks. Charles McPherson and many others. So and Patrice Rush. And so this year we'll continue that kind of outreach for other artists to come in to get other perspective. The rest of the panel include my good friend Jeremy Manassi, a great jazz pianist who is a professor at Manhattan School of Music, and this year help me Nidra, and I know her very well because was a trumpeter that was a good friend of mine who recently unfortunately passed away, Tom Williams. So we have another individual that's coming that's on the panel, and her name will come to me in a minute. She's gonna kill me. But anyway, I want to tell you a little bit about YoungArts. Excuse me, YoungArts is one of the only organizations that supports artists across 10 disciplines at all stages of development, beginning with the critical moment when they decide to pursue life in the arts and continuing throughout their careers. The YoungArts experience begins with the application. Artists ages 15 to 18 or grade 10 through 12 are encouraged to apply in the discipline of their choice. There are 2 award levels, Young Arts Award winners and Young Arts Award winners with distinction. Young Arts Award winners with distinction are invited to attend Young Arts Week in Miami. All award winners are offered a lifetime of artistic support and ongoing connection with an extraordinary, robust network of peers and mentors. This includes grants, residency, and funding opportunities. About the jazz application, what are we looking for? We're looking for an individual to be themselves. So we don't have any particular style we're looking for, any particular solo preference in any particular way. We're just looking for someone that has a grasp of the canon or the art form that works its way back. We all know as far back as W.C. Handy, Louis Armstrong, or forward, and all the things that go up into today. And since we have a finalist who is here, she possibly can speak a little bit about her process and what she did to make herself an ultimate winner. But again, we just feel that in the audition process, I think what's important is audition with what you do best, and don't feel like, well, if I don't play countdown, if I don't do giant steps, they're going to think that my maturity won't come through. Your maturity can come through in the way of a ballad or in the way of a nice standard, in the way of a jazz original, which is the criteria. So those are the things I would say. But the other thing is, no matter what audition, because whether you get accepted or not, going through the process is very important in your development as an artist. So I really think auditioning for as many opportunities as you can is, in my humble opinion, critical. If I'd have thought about, do I want to audition for Art Blakey? If I'd have thought about it, I probably wouldn't have done it. I just went down to New York City and auditioned, and I got hired. So it's really that simple, just the ability and the desire and the inclination just to get involved and gain experience and gain opportunities. The other thing is make sure you know the material. I think that's really critical. And also, what I mean, know the material, make sure you really know the material. If it's a standard, if you're gonna do Just Friends, what are the lyrics? Just friends, lovers no more, just friends not like before, so forth and so on. Make sure you know the lyrics. That might help you with your delivery if you're doing a standard, but really investigate the piece. Make sure you know the chords. And because remember, there's hundreds and hundreds of students that are applying, and the more well-versed you are with your piece, or the pieces that you audition on, it just makes you stronger. And the more that you know your piece helps you go forward in this process, because there's a lot of talented musicians that apply. So many, it's a shame. So just to make sure you're as properly prepared as you possibly can. And memorization obviously is great if you can. And beyond that, any other questions you might have, but those are some general kind of reactions I have to just that thought. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to a young lady who I've had some opportunity to watch and spend a week with her, and she's super talented. And Skylar Tang, would you like to take over?
Yeah, for sure. I couldn't agree more with everything Mr. Jackie just said. Just apply everywhere. You know, you got to make your opportunities for yourself. So yeah, I'm Skylar, she, her pronouns. I'm a trumpet player. I also compose a little bit. And I was a Young Arts winner with distinction this year, 2023. And I'm pretty much like all y'all. I heard through Young Arts through the internet, Gen Z things. I just watch the YouTube videos over and over again, and because I'm a fan of like all the past winners, and so just consuming that media just taught me all I need to know about Young Arts, right? Like it just fosters such artistic creativity. So as soon as I was eligible, I applied, and I happened to get lucky this year. And honestly, it completely changed my perspective about my musicianship. Because in jazz education, I'm sure y'all, we're kind of in the same boat. We're taught you need to know your craft. We're taught our craft. We're taught how to play our instrument. We're taught all these things. But Young Arts really opened the door for me to think about myself as more of an artist. Like not just like through the workshops and the master classes, which obviously they were super influential and inspiring, but just hanging out with other artists from different disciplines. As an artist, you get to ask yourself other questions like, what message are you trying to get across? What do you stand for? Like, what is the meaning of this art? And like, to me, those questions have been kind of ruminating in my head ever since. So like, as Mr. Jackson talked about, your craft is extremely important. Sorry for the noise. But your artistry, that is something that goes beyond. That's something that the world sees, and I think that's the main thing I got out of Young Arts. So my application process, because I knew about Young Arts for a while before I applied, I was trying to get it done early. The tunes I selected were, I think, Moment's Notice, Peace, the ballad, I think, or Silver, and what else did I do? Oh, it was like a blues, like Billy's Bounce or something. And those are the requirements. You have 3 tunes. So it's not a lot, but it's more than enough to put yourself out there, to give it everything you got. Like it's only 3 tunes. Like, so know the repertoire as well as possible. And I suggest like do it, record it, not the day before you have to submit it. Like record it a couple weeks before, so you have time to like think about it, choose the best take, right? You want to put your best foot forward, and the people that are going to be judging your audition, they'll remember you, right? So I think it's important to show the best version of yourself. As for like sound, like the technical aspects of the application, I just recorded with a backing track and a USB mic I've had since I was like 5. I think that is enough. You don't necessarily need a live band, although that helps. I just didn't have time to get one together. So just do whatever suits you. Do whatever represents your sound the best, like, and make sure like you are like in the frame in the video. Don't like show a picture of your feet or something. Like you want them to be able to see you playing your instrument. And I think just those basic technical things are enough. You don't need like to book a studio session or whatnot. An iPhone mic can do, but I suggest do a sound check. You don't want to record something that you loved and then hear it back and, oh no, it wasn't recording, it sounds really distorted. It's just, basic things. Do it, just be a bit detail oriented. I That's kind of my approach, but do what works for you, obviously. So Young Arts Week was awesome. It was like truly phenomenal. And one thing about this jazz program specifically that stood out to me from other programs I did was our entire set list, the overwhelming majority of our set list comprised of original tunes and arrangements, stuff that we brought in, stuff that we wanted to play. And it represented us as a group, as a unit, and in all of, the sounds that we wanted to make. And that is, I think there's no other program that I know of that fosters such creativity and allows us to explore this type of leadership, and it just added a layer of like meaning for me. Like I brought in 2 charts, an original of mine and an arrangement, and just the process of working on them, thinking about arranging and writing them for the group was an awesome experience. I think that's one thing that this jazz program does that's unlike any other. Another thing was another favorite part of Young Arts Week for me was the performances, and there's one that stood out. There's 2 classical Indian dancers, and on the dance side of the performance, I just remember like me and like the jazz group, we were sitting together, we were watching it, and like when the during the classical Indian dance performances, we were like mind blown. Like I hadn't seen anything like that, heard any music like that before. Like that was a completely like mind blowing experience. I don't know. I just thought it was so cool, and that just kept on happening throughout the week. Just seeing other artists work, not just the musicians, but the visual artists, the designers, the dancers, the singers, right? Not everyone, all the other artists didn't just have like mastery of like their craft. They had so much meaning in their work, and it was super inspiring. Okay, so I'm gonna share a video right now of one of my favorite moments, and I'm gonna share a video of our bassist Ryoma Takanaga's tune, and Cosmo Lieberman alto, he blows over it. And so this tune, the day before we performed it, it sounded nothing like the performance. The form was kind of in need of work. We, couldn't really figure out the groove and like how to connect these different parts together. It just needed a lot of work. But what happened was we just came together, we talked through it, we worked as a team to figure out how we can make this amazing composition into a performable experience. And I think that's what made this such a powerful moment for me in our show. So I'm gonna share it with y'all. Let me see. Okay, let me know if y'all can see it and hear it. Yeah, so that was one of my favorite moments when the tune transitions into something else. And that was so awesome because like we had those two sections, but like we didn't know how they fit together, and it just like all came together during the show, and that was, I don't know, I had such a blast, and like I hope you can tell like how much I admire like they're playing, Cosmo's playing, Ryoma's composition, like okay, it was awesome. Um, anyways, so I don't know, is there anything else? Young Arts, Young Arts really kind of changed my perspective on like artistry and like art, and just thinking about that has kind of allowed me to has opened doors for me regarding like composition, regarding like improvisation. Like, who do I want to sound like? What do I want to play? Right? Just those questions that have come up. And since then, I've gotten a lot more professional opportunities. One thing that Arts does that's awesome is that it's like a support system. It's such a strong community. Like they have so many programs such as like grants. You can apply for a bit of money if you want to set up a studio session and whatnot. Like just taking advantage of the community and connecting with other artists, right? Like the people in my year, I still remember like a lot of them. We keep in touch over social media, and I see them hanging out all the time. They're going to college together. Everyone's having a blast. Like it's honestly a week that forms so many new relationships for you. So I think this is a great opportunity. Y'all should all like put 120% into your audition, and good luck with everything. Let me know if you have any questions.
I did just want to tell you, Javon, her name is Tanya Darby.
I found it. Tanya, again, when Tom passed away, Tia Fuller's like a little sister to me, and I called Tia about some recommendations, and she said, "What about Tanya?" I said, "Oh yeah, because Tanya Darby taught at North Texas State. Now she's at Berkeley, so I've never met her, but we know each other. So we spoke on the phone and just one call. So I'm looking forward to having her as part of the one of the panelists. Great trumpet player."
So we had a couple questions come in. Do you think it's better to audition with a band that you play with every day or a duo?
Well, if you play with a band every day and you're comfortable with them, why not use the band? But then if you have a situation of a special relationship in a duo setting, there have been we've selected musicians that have recorded as a duo. I just want you to think about whatever the best situation that you can put yourself in to be the best version of yourself for this for the audition. And I will definitely agree with Scott that record yourself, listen back, be honest. If it's a video, look at the video so you can see what the world sees. Make sure you look comfortable and natural. But the more time you can rehearse with the music, no matter what setting, you'll be more comfortable in performing. So there's no right way or wrong way in terms of the group that you choose.
Right. Next question. Is there really no advantage to recording the audition with a live band? The music would be better that way, but it's easier to record with backing tracks.
I'm gonna let Skylar answer that, and I have something. But what's your opinion, Skylar?
My opinion, so I personally recorded with backing tracks just because like I didn't have like the resources to get a band together at that time. So just to reiterate what Mr. Jackson said, like do whatever makes you sound the best, whatever you feel comfortable with. I know sometimes if you're like getting a band together, it's like your first time playing in that ensemble, that situation, some things might not click, and you don't really want something that's you don't want really that to be reflected in your playing and in the audition. So I'd say it's a situation where you play with the band every day, it's your school band, you're comfortable with them, like they're your homies, like go for it. I think that won't really make you shine as a musician. But if not, like a backing track is fine. Just make sure the backing track is something that reflects what you want in the music, right? Like for me, I used a backing track, but I spent like a lot of time messing around with it, you know, cutting it together. So don't just like take whatever from the internet and assume it's good enough. Like you want it to help you sound better. It's about demonstrating your skills as a musician.
I feel the same way. Again, if you say you're a senior, and when I was at the school I went to in Denver, it was the first year the high school ever existed. So I was very interested in music, but a lot of my counterparts in the bands weren't really as strong. So I knew professionals in the field in my city. So if you know some professionals that are willing to do the audition with you, again, it's just whatever you feel most comfortable with and whatever give you the strongest platform to present yourself with.
All right. Are the jazz vocalists heard by the jazz panelists or the vocal department panelists? So yes, there is a voice discipline, and there is a completely separate panel for voice, and there is a category for jazz vocalists. So that would be a separate panel. Are you able to play an already existing song, or do we need to compose on our own?
For the audition, the criteria is a blues, 12-bar blues, a ballad, a Great American Standard ballad, or not necessarily piece is another example, was an example of the something wasn't, but a ballad, and then also a up-tempo piece, whether it could be a standard or it can be, as Skylar says, she did ba da 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 da. She did that. I can't call the name right now. I can sing it. Moment's Notice. So she did Moment's Notice. So it just depends. The three pieces that show range in terms of your stylistic approach and the maturity in those different areas that you bring to the table.
All right. Next question. How much improvisation do you think is acceptable?
I don't understand the question. You have to play the melody and then you take a solo. So the solo is a big part of the criteria. So you're not going to just get to play the melody with the other folks that are selected. It's largely putting it together. And what's unique, as Skylar mentions, we get together, we meet each other on Sunday and the concert's on Tuesday. So we get, is that correct, Skylar? You get one day to rehearse, and each individual brings in either a standard or a jazz piece arranged or originals. And we encourage originals. Just like when I played Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, he wanted originals. But we still try to find a way to do something that is pays homage to the art form. So we always try to, in the spirit of Tom Williams, he always wanted us to play a blues. So we always found a way to play a blues in the concert, or someone would bring in something that has a certain kind of connection to the art form, where it's original by Dizzy Gillespie or original by, it could be Ornette Coleman. Just something maybe that might be grounded in the tradition in terms historically. But we don't put any, there's no idea of what it has to be, but yes, and I don't always like to use the word improvisation, because improvisation to me means you don't know what you're doing. And you know what you're doing, you're just creative soloists. Sometimes I think improvisation kind of devalues all the time that we put in. If we see a C7, we know that's C, E, G, B flat. How we work it is the creativeness after all the hours of playing C, E, G, B flat. So that's just my little pet peeve. That's why I didn't respond as a improviser. We are creative based on the information and what we're able to do, either through sound or through concept.
All right. So is judging subjective to the judge? For example, if there are theoretically two people playing in two different styles and they're equally proficient, how is the winner chosen? Is it based off of judge's perspective?
Well, I don't believe that two things can be equal, first of all. So if you're playing two different styles, that's already different. And it's not a competitive thing. It's largely based on how mature this person is with the material that they're soloing on. So it's not like saying, well, Skylar had more chops than everybody else. It's the presentation. You can listen to Miles Davis and you can listen to Clifford Brown that came up around the same time. Totally different styles, but it will kind of determine at some point who is a little bit more comfortable in the delivery. And again, we have different areas. And by the way, I should say this, and Nidra can say this, there's a process before it even gets to myself. It goes through, is it 2 different stages?
It's in the first round, it's by three eyes. It's reviewed 3 times. Yeah.
Right. So before it even gets to us, so we don't see all of the submissions. We see the last batch that have been moved up towards finalists. So I wouldn't even worry about how would I get selected. Again, just apply, lay it out there, but we're not subjective and, well, no, you got to play just like Freddie Hubbard because Javon played with Freddie Hubbard. No, it's not like that. It's the person in our opinion has a certain mesh that will fit the overall arc of the group and who has a style that is very mature. Skylar didn't play herself. She's very humble, but she's a very mature player. And also she pays attention to the harmony. I think that's important too. A lot of people play well, and all of us growing up as young jazz musicians, but I think even and I forget the young man that played, reminds me of, well, Kenny Garrett's very, very close. He reminds me of Kenny, but he still paid attention to the harmony, even though he went other places with his creativeness. So I think that's important too. How well can you play the harmony and understand the harmony, and how well can you use the harmony to aid you in your delivery as a soloist? I hope that's making sense.
All right, next question. Can you audition with a banjo as your instrument?
You can, however, we're probably not going to be playing the kind of material by and large that would feature the banjo. And I'm not saying there's not jazz banjo, but jazz banjo versus a jazz guitarist. So I think you have to kind of consider sometimes what you want to do. It's like saying, well, I'm going to move to the North Pole and start selling ice cream. I mean, that's great. But then you say, oh, I want to move to Tahiti and sell ice cream. You probably have a better shot selling more ice cream in Tahiti. I don't know if that helps or not, but just consider the history of the art form and kind of what is not a tendency, but what would possibly fit the criteria. However, if you feel as a banjo player, you're coming through that arc that starts from Charlie Christian forward, and you feel you're applicable, please audition. As I said, audition, but I want you to audition. It's like saying, well, I'd like to audition with a harp. That's great. And I know some harpists, jazz harpists, but by and large, with what the instrumentation is and the way it's constructed, would there be a place for it? Could you speak to that, Skylar, in terms of the guitarist per se that we had last year, you know, how he's better served in some ways just sonically than maybe a banjo?
Well, I think I'm not one of the judges, or I don't know much about that process. However, I think their main objective is to create a band that works together, that's cohesive together. And if your audition should showcase that. And I think as a banjo player, or like someone who's not, traditionally in a jazz setting, that, you just got to demonstrate that you can work together as a team with, the other musicians, with the, drummer, with the basses, with the horn section. You just got to illustrate that. And I think, that's your goal. And that's kind of the objective.
Yeah, I didn't mean to put you on the spotlight because you're not, audition, but I'm just trying to, as a young person that plays in different settings, I think it's important to know how your instrumentation will fit. And also, if you have the language You can comment on a harmonica. That's not really the key. If you feel like you have the language and you have the history there that makes you applicable, again, please audition.
Great. If you're a pianist, do you have to comp for the bass solo in the recording?
Yes. If it's a trio, we want to hear you as a soloist, and also, which is the function in a jazz situation, small jazz ensemble. Whoever that is, the pianist, you're the symphony. The piano's a symphony. So we do want to hear you. If you're a jazz drummer, we want to hear you play behind the soloist and then take a drum solo. Bass, we want to hear you walk and then take a solo, because again, the bass, in addition to many roles, the primary function is to being a walking bass player or being a supportive bass player. We want to be able to hear where, how the bottom, which is what the bass is the bottom of the harmony, how you function and how you're able to uniquely play behind a soloist. And by walking, we get a chance to hear your choice of notes, harmonic choices, and so forth and so on.
Please touch on how the jazz composition contest differs from the instrumental.
It's composition. So you compose. You don't have to do AABA. Doesn't have to be based off rhythm changes. Doesn't have to be off a jazz standard. You just compose what it is, and at that point, you're looking for the melodies, the melodic content, the rhythmic content, the harmonic content, and how that all works. And again, the strength of what the writing is more so than anything else we're looking for, or the criteria is for the strength. And we got to remember, most of the people that are auditioning are above average. And so the folks that get selected are above that average, if that makes sense. So if you've been writing 2 weeks ago, but if you've been writing for the last 3 or 4 years, then obviously there should be some strength and a little bit more girth to what the writing process is. But in the words of Wayne Shorter, who told me, fellow jazz messenger, just write all the time. And in time, you'll begin to write whatever your ancestral stream is, or what it is that you feel closely to, because writing allows you to give the listener and yourself a window into your own soul.
Okay, so the person who was asking about improvisation earlier is referring to scatting. So that would be for the voice, the jazz voice category. So this is for jazz instrumentals. So you may, if you are asking about jazz voice, you may want to check out the jazz voice requirements, because that is a different and not what we're talking about on this info session. When performing with a backing track, did Skylar use headphones and record just trumpet, mixing the audio later? Or do you need to play the backing track on speakers in the room? Is it okay to mix in the performance to focus on the performer, or is this considered sound enhancement?
Okay, so I used headphones and I put, I used Logic, putting my trumpet sound through a USB mic into Logic and, putting it with the backing track. And personally, I think that's the way to go, because it's really hard to get a speaker, and you have to do a lot of sound checking to make sure your trumpet sound is coming through, and the backing track from the speaker is not overpowering. I think doing sound enhancement, that's just adding reverb, adding effects, pitch correction, that stuff. I don't think it's bad to use a mic to make yourself sound to reflect your sound better. I think that's just attention to detail. That's just showing that you kind of care about what you're doing. So yeah, you don't need to be super super scared about that the sound enhancement thing. Do what will reflect your sound and make you sound the best, without going over the top and auto-tuning yourself.
All right. Could you elaborate more, maybe with an example about what you mean by the term maturity?
Speaking English at 5 versus speaking English at 12 versus speaking English at 17 versus speaking English at 33. The folks that start a little earlier with this art form will be more mature. So again, you will have some people who started much earlier, and so their presentation is going to be more mature. If you hear someone play a tritone substitution in 6 or 7 different places, they're probably a little bit more mature soloist as opposed to someone that might just be learning solos a year prior or 6 months prior. So maturity just means what it is, the delivery of what you're doing. And again, Skylar's here, so she's a mature player. I don't really know how to explain any more than that, than just the more time you have, if you spent in on the instrument and with the music, is going to make you a more mature soloist.
And then a follow-up from the banjoist, can you submit for 2 instruments separately? So yes, you can apply in as many instruments as you'd like. Please note that there is a $35 fee for each of those that you apply in, and there are fee waivers available to waive your fee entirely. Next question, if you are a pianist, when we are comping, is it fine to comp behind ourselves, or should we just comp over another chorus?
I don't understand that. Comp behind yourself. Oh, you want to mean, well, yeah, I mean, but you know what you're going to play. So comping behind yourself, it's not as different. It's not the same as if we get to hear you comp behind a soloist where you don't know necessarily what's coming. So you're reacting. So I think, but if you do a trio, you're going to comp behind the bassist if it's a jazz trio with bass and drums, or if it's you and a duo, the pianist at some point will comp behind another instrument. So, because again, we play music with others. So again, as the piano being a symphony, there's going to be some point where you're going to have to comp behind other instruments, especially in this ensemble, there will be other instruments. So it's better, it'll be better served for the person auditioning to let us know that, and it helps them when they get there, because that's a big part of putting this whole process together, is the flexibility to comp behind Skylar, to comp behind, what's the trombonist? I really liked him. Skylar, what was his name? The trombonist. Luke, comp behind him, because each soloist of Skylar would probably remember, she knows better than me, there are 3 different types of soloists, right? So we need a pianist that has that maturity and ability to work off concept or also the sound, and be also working with that bassist, and then maybe also with the drums and a different thing. So that's what we mean. So to hear you in other situations than just kind of by yourself, it's the way it's going to be evaluated.
Okay, great. So that's it for the chats, the questions in the chat. So let me just take a minute to talk about the competition and the application. So the application is currently open, and it closes on October 13th. That's Friday at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. That's 8:59 p.m. Pacific. The winners, immediately after the application closes, we go directly into the adjudication process, and that takes approximately a month. And then we will announce winners at the end of November. So to apply, you must be in grades 10 through 12 or ages 15 to 18 on December 1st of this year in order to apply. You can visit our website for FAQs, requirements, and tips and things like that. And it is youngarts.org. The other thing is that the application is hosted on a new application platform this year called Kaleidoscope. And that is a separate application. So once you go to our website, you can then be directed to the application. Another thing to note is that is a 2-step process this year. So you will fill out your main application with your contact information, education, educators that you want to acknowledge, and then you will go on to upload your videos and submit for the jazz category that you'd like to apply in. So After that, oh, again, I touched base on the $35 application fee. There are fee waivers available. You would just need to submit a letter to within your application stating that you are in need, and it will waive your fee completely. And from there, the winners are announced at the end of November. There are 2 award levels. It is Young Arts Winner and Young Arts Winner with Distinction. And Young Arts Winners with Distinction are invited to participate in National Young Arts Week, which will be held in January. And Skylar talked briefly about her experience there. There are also other opportunities available to winners, not just during your winning year, but even past that. We have microgrants, residencies, fellowships, lots of opportunities, and we have a platform called Young Arts Post, which is kind of like a Facebook exclusive to Young Arts winners. And you can go on there and meet the 20,000 plus alumni that we have on that platform, collaborate with them, find opportunities that are upcoming, and also post opportunities that you may have available to work with other alumni. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. If there are any other questions, feel free to raise your hand, drop it in the chat. Javon, did you have any last things to say?
Well, one thing I want to say, and he's become a really close friend. He's a young man who was a Young Arts winner, and use him as an example where he auditioned on drums and then on piano he wore a hat, so we couldn't tell who he was. Well, he's become like a son almost, is Julius Rodriguez. So I'm using him as an example. Don't try to deceive us with the clothing. And so Julius, which I know him well now, and he's one of the rare people that actually plays great jazz drums and great jazz piano. It's very rare that, but still I give him a lot of, I just saw his parents and I said, you know, you deceived us. So if you can, just let us see who you are. You can audition on different instruments, but don't do what Julius did. You remember that, Nidra?
Yes, I remember it. You called me in to say, that's not the same guy.
And it was the same guy. It was amazing. But he had a hat on. I didn't recognize him. So well, I didn't know him at all at that point at all. But he's gone on. He's really doing good. He's on a major label. I think it's on Verve now or something. So he's a killer. He's a killer.
All right, everyone. Well, again, our website is youngarts.org. There are FAQs, all types of tips, and also the requirements on our website. If you think of any questions after this info session is done, feel free to email us at apply@youngarts.org, or you can DM us on social media. We thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you, Javon. Thank you, Skylar. Thank you so much. And also, this is being recorded and will be posted to our YouTube page within the next couple weeks. So if you missed any part of it, be sure to check it out on YouTube. Thank you all. Have a great evening.
Bye.